Hey beautiful people, what is up and welcome back to my channel. I am Jamila and I love all things beauty. I love all things makeup, I love all things skincare, and I especially love sharing my tips and tricks for how to find high-end and luxury beauty products at bargain prices. Yes, we do. If that sounds like something you're interested in, I would absolutely love if you would consider subscribing and joining the fam. Okay. I'm not sure what order these videos are going to go up in, but if you were wondering, I am wearing the Cliona Dragon Fruit eyeshadow palette on the eyes, and I am testing out the Danessa Myricks Balm Powder Thingamabob. So those videos will be up at some point, either before or after this one. But as you saw from the title and the thumbnail, right now we are continuing with my Pat McGrath rankings, and I'm going to be ranking my 6-pan eyeshadow palettes. I have 9 of them, and disclaimer, I love them all. Y'all know how I feel about Patricia. I love Mama Pat, I hate Mama Pat, but at the end of the day, I love her products. You cannot argue with Patricia's eyeshadow quality. So the way in which I'm ranking these, honestly, I did this like 5 minutes ago. So my opinions can change at any time. If my number 1 is your number 9, that is your business. I have nothing to do with it. Please do not argue without any comments. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion about which palette is the best. And these could change at any point in time as our makeup preferences change. So we're not doing that today, okay? All right. So without further ado, let's dive into the rankings. So coming in at number 9, I have the Mothership Rose Decadence. This was actually, I believe, the first time we saw Mama Pat come out with the 6-pan palettes in this sort of flap style. Prior to that, it was the one that had the tie enclosure. It was the trifold. And then we saw her come up with this one. Now, this palette was made in the US and imported ingredients. And it is, you know, when Mama Pat was on her rose theme. Here's the thing. I love this color story. I think this is absolutely beautiful, absolutely stunning. But I think that this is one of the worst qualities I've ever seen, the worst quality I've ever seen from Pat McGrath, like ever. This is by no means bad, because I don't think I've ever seen Pat McGrath put out a palette that is bad. But I do think that compared to the other palettes we've seen her use, the mattes just didn't feel as creamy or as blendable, and the shimmers just felt, honestly, a little bit meh. I was quite disappointed in this palette, because at the end of the day, Mama Pat has created a standard that is honestly very hard to achieve and attain, but because she has gotten us so used to this standard, whenever we don't get anything that's up to par with that quality, we kind of question it. Even swatching these shimmers right now, they feel dry. And when it comes to Mama Pat, I've never really had her palettes or her shades ever feel dry. Like, they swatch well enough, and this is a color story that I can get behind. Like, I love a copper shade, a good strong copper shade, but I felt like when I tried to apply these shadows to the eyes, it just wasn't giving the level of quality that I usually expect from Mama Pat, and I had to work a little bit harder. So this is why that's coming in at number 9. Coming in at number 8 is one of Mama Pat's old palettes. Like, this is super old school. I actually purchased this secondhand. This was before I got into Mama Pat. I really started buying Pat McGrath in 2020 during the pandemic, so I kind of missed all of her older launches, but I was able to find this, I believe, on Poshmark, and this is absolutely stunning. It's super duper gorgeous. It is that sort of trifold I was telling you guys about, but at the end of the day, what bothered me about this palette is that this green does not perform well. Now, first and foremost, like I said, I purchased this secondhand, so it could be the fact that this, you know, has aged a little bit. I don't know how it was taken care of beforehand, but this is an older palette, so I assume that it may have dried out a bit. But when I swatch the green, I feel like it does not give what it needs to give. Like, it swatches here a lot better than when it applies on the eyes, and I felt like I really struggled with the green in particular in this palette in terms of how it applied to my eyes. The other thing that I want to mention about Bronze Temptation is that this definitely feels like a Christmas palette. The color story in this is very much that red, green looks. I only really think about this palette when it's time for Christmas. Granted, you can use this throughout the year. It is an absolutely stunning palette. This shade here, perfection. I actually think that this is a shifty shade, so it does have a little bit of a flip to it. but I don't reach for this palette. And you guys already know that when it comes to multi-chromes and duochromes, Pat McGrath doesn't have the strongest. You know, if you really want a strong multi-chrome, you got to go to the indie brands. But this is a red shift. There's a red shade that shifts gold, and it's really, really hard to see it. But that is what is like the star of that palette. I think that that is what saves the green and saves this from being one of the worst palettes in my collection. Coming in at number 7, right behind Bronze Temptation, we have Golden Opulence. This was another one that I believe was released for the holiday, and it is a very, very basic color story. So if you really cover up the gold, you'll see that this is quite pinky, quite peachy. This does rank a little bit higher above the Bronze Temptation, because one, I think the green in that palette is a little bit of a dud, so it definitely brings it down. All of the shades in here perform really well. This was also my first 6-pan palette, and I really, really enjoyed this. I thought that the quality in here was spectacular. The mattes performed well. The shimmers were really nice. I think that this is just a good solid palette if you like an everyday kind of bronzy, neutral, goldy, pinky look. Nothing special if we're being honest, and I'm second guessing whether I should flip these two because honestly that duochrome shade in here is fire. But I'm gonna stick with what I did. So this is gonna be number 7, and this is Golden Opulence. Coming in at number 6, we have Bronze Ambition. This is honestly quite similar to Golden Opulence. It is a neutral brown eyeshadow palette. Like, that's what it is. That's what you're gonna get. Nothing special, nothing extravagant. And it does rank so low because it is exactly that. Nothing special, nothing extravagant. However, the quality in this 6-pan is amazing. I feel like the mattes blend so well. The shimmers in here are the type that you can blend into mattes, so they work really, really great. And this is perfect for an everyday, just neutral look. If you want something that's simple, if you want something that you can just grab and go every day, and you do get a little bit of dimension, so you can get like the more pinky neutral look. This is definitely a more pinky coppery shade, or you can get like a standard brown. You can go really, really deep and smoky with this brown here, or you can keep it really light with this one here. I love that this shade is neutral enough that it would work as a transition shade for deeper complexions. Like, Mama Pat always makes sure that there are shades that will work for deeper complexions, and this palette I think is like the perfect, just compact, warm, neutral palette for someone of my complexion, I'd say. I gotta reach for this one more. I'm just like, ooh, obsessed. Let me swatch a couple for you guys. Swatch these two. Look at that. Look at that deep chocolate. Smoky goodness. Come on. Even if you just did those 2 shades together, amazing. Moving right along, coming in at number 5, we have the Mothership Subliminal Dark Star. This actually came out in the same holiday collection as Bronze Temptation. So you can see the packaging is pretty much the same, just different color. And this one is gorgeous. So the reason why this ranks above Dark Star, Bronze Temptation, is obviously because this one is way more unique. This is a blue color story. You get this really pretty blue-gray shade, and then you get a really nice sort of shimmer blue. When it comes to color, you guys know that Mama Pat does not do it very often. So when we get these unique palettes, we just have to like run, grab them, and appreciate them so well. And then you do get this kind of like, it's almost like a rich purple, deep black shade, purple, blackish shade. Stunning. And the thing about this palette is, you know how I mentioned that the Bronze Temptation palette, I don't think it aged well. This one aged perfectly. Like, I think that the shades are still super duper creamy. This blue shade is actually a blue purple duochrome. It's not as strong as the duochrome in the other palette, but it is there. And it's just really, really beautiful. And I think it would pair really nicely with this shade here because it is a deep purple matte shade. That's stunning. And this is kind of what we want Mama Pat to do, right? You know, like back in the day, she would give us these really unique palettes that had duochromes in them, that had these really stunning shades in them. And now we don't get this anymore. But this is a solid one. This is also one that I had to buy secondhand because, again, this was before my time really experiencing Pat's formula. Coming in at number 4 is a pretty new palette, and one that I think is going to shock a lot of people. Yes, it is the OG Pat McGrath Bridgerton palette. I was not impressed with this. This is actually when we also started seeing, I think, like a shift in equality of these 6 bands. Like, all of this is plastic. The saving grace of this palette is that this blue shade is one of Pat's astral shades. Like, it definitely gives it that extra va-va-voom. But if you were to cover that shade and look at the rest of the palette, it is very boring. And I mean very, very boring. I think that this is definitely not a palette that inspires me. Even the astral shade, while it is pretty, is one that I could have done without just generally. It's a blue sparkly shade that I am not really going to reach for. And if I'm being quite honest, I don't think it pairs that nicely with the pinks in this palette. I think we could have done with a different astral color. So when it comes to this palette just generally, it's not one that I really like. Like, the shades in here, the blue astral shade I think has a little bit of purple in there, but I would not necessarily pair it with these shades. Like, you can, and I've created a look with it and it was fine, but it's not a palette that I think is very cohesive or one that inspires me, because all I see is either I'm gonna do a pink look or a pink look with some blue, or a bluish look with mainly pink. Like, there's no other way to do it. Like, the matte shades are pink. Like, you just have to have a pink look, and I don't like the way this blue pairs with it. So this definitely ranks lower. Like I said, the saving grace is the fact that there is an astral shade, and she was able to include that for us at that price. But we didn't ask for that. We really didn't. Coming in at number 3 is a palette that I think about all the time, and it is another one of those old palettes that I had to purchase on, I believe, Mercari or Poshmark, and that is the Mothership Subliminal Platinum Bronze. And this baby is the perfect cool-toned neutral palette for somebody that is just getting into cool tones. First of all of these shades are really deep, really rich. So if you have a deeper complexion, you don't have to worry about cool tones that are gonna look ashy or gray on you. These have depth and these have punch to them. And these are all kind of like that satin-ish formula that Pat McGrath have that is a shimmer, but you can really, really blend it out to make it look like a matte. And I think that we get a little bit of dimension here. So this one is a bit more of a goldy shade. This one is almost a little bit purple. And then we have like the deep brown. You get a nice sort of highlight shade or a good blending out shade, or even a good transition shade for someone that's a deeper complexion, that's a lighter complexion. So I think you have a really good mix here. Whenever I think about cool tone palettes for deeper complexions, this is one of the first ones that comes to mind. Like, if you are like me and you are more yellow or golden undertone, when it comes to cool tone palettes, it can be really, really intimidating because a lot of them can have you looking real casket ready. So if you are looking to get into cool tones and you don't want something overwhelming, like the Natasha Denona Glam palette can be too many shades, I feel like this has always been a great intro into cool tones because you have a very curated set of shades that you can mix and match in any way and come up with a really, really nice look that works well on folks that have a more golden undertone and are intimidated by cool tone shades. So this is one that's always top of mind for me. So it definitely has to rank higher because it introduced me to cool tones. It helped me perfect how to apply cool tones on my skin. And it's one that I'm always constantly thinking about when I think about my Pat McGrath collection. Coming in at number 2 is another old one, and this is from that same collection, and it is Pat McGrath Mothership Subversive Levy in Rose. I searched high and low for this palette. I needed to have this in my collection, and it is, and you're probably like, it's a pink palette. Yes, it's a pink purple palette, don't at me. But this is so beautiful. I am obsessed with this palette. I created one of my most favorite halo eyes using this palette. I think that this is just a unique color story for Pat McGrath. Even though this is pink, like, I think the fact that we have that purple shade in there is really, really beautiful. I don't know if we get a ton of purple shades from Pat that are like this. Like, this is such a rich purple matte shade. It is stunning. And that paired with this, like, fuchsia pink. Oh, I'm running out of space. So good. And using the gold in the middle as a halo. Listen, love. I love this palette. And when I tell you I searched for this, I searched for this. And when I finally found it and I applied it, I was not disappointed. It made it so much worth it to find this and play in it because it's such good quality. And when I think about like my favorite Pat McGrath palettes or the ones that inspire me the most, this is definitely one that comes to mind for me. So it has to rank really high because I certainly feel inspired by this. Like a lot of the other palettes are, you know, easy, quick, you know, they work for everyday looks. But this is one of these 6 pans that really does inspire me. And last, but certainly not least, and drum roll please, coming in at number 1 is the newest Pat McGrath palette, and this is Mothership Belle of the Ball. This is from the Bridgerton collection, and this is just stunning. I think this goes back to Mama's roots of, you know, having more interesting color stories. Like, a lot of people were like, oh, but it's pink again. And I'm like, but is it really though? Like, yes, you have these definitely pink leaning shades. And I wish that we would have gotten more brownish mattes instead of these pinkish leaning mattes. I think that would have made it a lot better. Like, maybe just switching out one of these for like a brown or a black or something. Just not a pink. But at the end of the day, we ended up getting 2 completely different colors. So we have this blue shade here that I think is really pretty and would have matched well with the blue in the other Bridgerton palette. I think that if those 2 combined together, they would have been perfect. And then we have this shade here, which I believe is called Forbidden Amour. But to be quite honest, this is Gigabyte. This is Gigabyte, which in my opinion is one of Pat's most exquisite shades just ever, period, point blank. I'm swatching here. And to have that available in this 6 pan, I think is absolutely stunning. And the other thing that helps this palette rise to the top is that we have 2 astral shades and the price didn't change. I mean, in this day and age where everything is going up, not only did we get Gigabyte, which is an astral shade, we got this shade here, Refinement, which is another astral shade. So I think that because, you know, we are able to get 2 absolutely stunning astral shades in this palette, like I have to give this the number 1 slot. Like Gigabyte is, in my opinion, one of Pat's best shades, just down packed. And even though this second astral shade is a more pink leaning shade, it is really beautiful. It's actually very stunning. Wow. Looking at it now and I'm like, damn. Anyways, so this definitely takes the number 1 spot. I am really excited. I'm really happy that Pat has started putting out these palettes, these 6 pan palettes with her astral shades, because one of the things about Pat McGrath, or the biggest thing about Pat McGrath, is her Blitz Astral formula. That's what we buy it for, right? And nobody wants to drop $125 on her big mothership. A lot of times you want to get introduced to that formula to figure out if it's worth it, because there are people who just don't like that formula, and being able to get that formula with some mattes, with some of her more satin shades, like you really do get a mini mothership for like half the price. So I would love to see her continue to bring up more of these 6 pans that have those like blitz shades in there with her metallics and her mattes and her satins. Like, yes, let's create more affordable makeup that is accessible. But, you know, anyways. All right, so this is the second part of my Pat McGrath ranking series. You guys already know, up next, I'm going to be doing a ranking of my motherships. I have all 9 of them. And then I'm going to give you guys a full ranking of every single Pat McGrath palette that I have. I am still stressing over that, but we will get there. All right, if you guys like this video, I would absolutely love if you would hit that like button. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Leave a comment down below letting me know which of the Pat McGrath 6 pan palettes is your absolute favorite. And as always, I love you guys. Thank you so very much for watching, and I'll catch you in my next one. Bye.